I'm going to use this orange to show you why your medication might be making you sicker and a better way to help you with your illness and whatever you're struggling with health-wise. I want you to consider this orange to be a cell in your body. And you know how an orange has all these little nubs? Well, these are what would be called receptor sites, okay? And so when you get anxious, depressed, stressed, any sort of illness or disease, what's happened is those receptor sites, see how that's purple? They are activated. This is your anxiety, stress, depression, disease, right? This is what is damaged in the cell. Well, the problem is what medication does when you take a pill is it doesn't come in and just attach to these damaged receptor sites that are activated and causing your illness or disease or stress or anxiety. It attaches to the whole cell. Now, what happens because it attaches to the whole cell is you've just activated insomnia. You've just activated diarrhea. Think of all the commercials that you hear and all the side effects. What you've done when you've taken medication is you've just turned on all of those receptor sites. And now all of these hidden situations that weren't bugging you have just risen to the surface. And that's why medication makes you sicker. Think about it. Listen to every drug commercial. When you take the pill, it has 20 more side effects, what does your doctor do? Give you 20 more pills. Now, why is that? It's because medication is designed to treat symptoms, not the cause. So what's the cause of these receptor sites turning on and you being anxious, depressed, cancer, whatever it may be? Well, that's the nasty little secret that the medical community doesn't want to talk to you about. And now I want to make something clear. I'm not telling you to stop taking your medication. That is not what I'm advising. That is not it. What I am making a clear distinction on is medication is a great place to start. Many times we are so elevated, we need it. But medication treats symptoms, not the cause. So it's a wonderful place to start, but in most cases, it is not the solution. The solution is to deal with the emotional trauma that has created the activation of these receptor sites in your body. We now know, and we've known for a very long time, that nearly every single disease and illness is caused by emotional trauma that's stuck in the body. Now, unfortunately, this is very hard for people to hear. The most trusted profession of all professions is the medical community, and honestly, it breaks my heart because they are vastly undereducated on what actually causes illness and disease. So to help you break, because denial is going to come up, you're going, no, I don't want to hear this. You know, medicine is always the answer because we've all been indoctrinated to take a pill for everything. So I'm going to load you up with proof so that you can educate yourself on what's really happening here. All right? The first thing to understand is this. Every single medical school is funded by the drug companies. Every single one. They have a vested interest in educating every doctor to prescribe medication. Number two, there are only a few schools in the whole United States where they even take a single class on emotional trauma. That's it. The primary cause of illness and disease, they're not even educated on. I find that criminal. I find it heartbreaking. Now, why do I say that? Because we have decades of research that shows the direct correlation between emotional trauma and disease. The first thing I'm going to give you as far as proof, because I know I can see the comments. What are the studies? Where are they? So I'm going to give you 3 books and 1 study that you can pull up yourself. All right. The first is the study, the Adverse Childhood Experience Study. Pull that up. Even as recently as 2019, the CDC found that at least 5 of the 10 leading causes of death, including respiratory illness, heart disease, cancer, and suicide, are all associated with adverse childhood experiences. In other words, emotional trauma experienced in childhood. That's all illness and disease are, okay? Now, the next thing I want to point to is because everyone will then say, well, what about genetics and DNA? Well, you need to read this book, The Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton. He was a cell biologist leader in the industry, and over 20 years ago, he discovered how genes work. The old line is that when you're born with a gene, there's nothing you can do about it. It's predetermined, you're set, you're going to have this illness or disease. That's not true. There are only just a couple of really rare diseases where if you have that gene, it's destined for you to have that illness. All the others, cancer, everything else, requires a specific environment for the gene to be placed in. In other words, an emotional environment for that gene to be activated. So again, using the orange, all of these receptor sites, we're all born with cancer cells and all these different illnesses and diseases. Well, depending on the emotional environment you grow up in, that's what activates the receptors and turns them on, is that environment the gene is placed in. And so you need to get up to date. Well, you don't need to. My suggestion is, if you're not getting the health that you deserve, I would suggest that you improve your knowledge about how genes and DNA work. This is the first place to start. The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton. Now, if you want to learn about everything I talked about, cells and how receptors work, that's this book by Dr. Candace Pert, The Molecules of Emotion. She discovered this way back in the 70s and 80s and was completely poo-pooed by everybody, even though it's documented proof and has been proven over and over. And I'm going to get to why the medical community is so resistant to truth and accepting these the documented studies and all of this, that we know how this works. The next book I'm going to suggest is by Dr. Gabor Mate, When the Body Says No. Again, all of these 3 books are filled with the research and studies that prove everything I'm saying. It's not an opinion, it's all documented fact that's out there that the medical community refuses to even educate our doctors on. And that's why everyone's staying sick. It's fascinating, and you'll learn about this in this book, how ever since we've had such pharmaceutical advances in the last 50 years, that all of these diseases have skyrocketed. They've gotten worse, not better. Obesity, heart disease, cancer, everything. The more we ignore the true cause of illness and disease, emotional trauma, and the more we get on ADHD, ADD, all these different medications, the worse our health is becoming. Because again, medication treats the symptoms, not the cause. The cause is emotional trauma. So when you do that research, because no offense, I've done it. And part of my platform is putting you in a position where you will go become the expert yourself. It's our responsibility to educate ourselves. That's part of the problem with the internet and all of this is we just Google it and get the answer. We don't want to do the work. Well, that's not how we learn and grow. We have to invest in our own recovery and our own growth. We have to put the time and effort in. And so that's why when I offer this stuff, I don't give you every little detail, because honestly, I'm trying to break your enablement of not taking care of yourself. This is an act of love to point you in the right direction, but then allow you to take responsibility for your own recovery and your own health by going to become your own expert. That's how we heal. That's how we help people. But if we do all the work for somebody, we're enabling them. It's not allowing them to step into their greatness. And so that's why I point you in that direction of the adverse childhood experience study, the biology of belief, the molecules of emotion, and When the Body Says No by Gabor Mate. All of those have bibliographies with all the research and everything that documents everything I'm saying. Now, let's get to why the medical community is so resistant to change. Well, that comes from the worst day cycle, which I wrote about in my book, Your Journey to Success. What they're really stuck in are stage 3 and 4 of the cycle, shame and denial. Now you're going to learn, part of what you're going to learn in this book is why we pick our careers. Every career we all pick is based on emotional trauma. It's everybody. I know that sounds hard to believe, but that's what you have to learn about how this works. And so denial, the way it works is it's very difficult for us to take ourselves out of self-deception and hear new information. Just think of yourself. If you're resistant to all of this, that's your denial. It's confronting your beliefs about the world and about medicine. Well, why is that a struggle for all of us? That's a sign of low self-esteem. And where does low self-esteem come from? Childhood trauma. Okay? The reason we struggle with hearing new information is it feels like an assault, when in fact, it should be something exciting. Oh my gosh, I've just learned something. I can improve my health. I can improve my well-being. I can improve my relationships, my parenting. I can improve my financial situation. New information should excite us. But the adverse reaction happens. We shut down, we say no, we don't want to investigate. That's denial. That's protecting the false personas we all had to develop in childhood because of the less than perfect parenting we all experienced. And yes, we all experience less than perfect parenting because parents are human. We make mistakes. No parent has not left wounds in their child. And that would be assuming we'd been raised by gods. Now, I want all of us to feel like our parents are gods and perfect, but we have to get into truth and reality, and true love is truth. Yeah, our parents left wounds. Big deal. Let's talk about it. Let's have open conversations with our parents. Let's have open conversations as a society. That's why all of this is happening, because we won't have that. So if you want to learn why the medical community is so adverse to dealing with truth and accepting already documented evidence that they're treating symptoms and not the root cause, pick up a copy of my book, Your Journey to Success, and you'll learn about the worst day cycle and what's causing all of this. So now we get to the solution. What do we do? What's better than medication? Again, I'm going to say it again. I am not telling you to stop your medication. Please stay on it. It is a great place to start. There are some rare cases where it is your best solution. And I'm not an anti-medicine person. I'm just advocating truth and responsibility. Start with that. But recognize you're treating symptoms, not the root cause. The root cause is emotional trauma, and that requires emotional mastery. Two things will give you that. My book shows you how your trauma from the past is creating your illness and disease. You'll see it when you read this book. You'll start to recognize that when your illness pops up, your depression, your anxiety, whatever it may be, something is going on emotionally, and you're trying to suppress that painful emotion because it's never been processed or dealt with. And that's why the receptor sites are turned on and you feel the way you do. You feel sick. So the solution is to become an expert in your emotions and develop emotional mastery. So the first step is to pick up a copy of my book, Your Journey to Success, so you can see that it all starts with unhealed emotional trauma. The second step is to start gaining emotional mastery. Now for that, I give you my free introductory class to gaining emotional mastery. It's called Your Journey to Emotional Mastery. Now you can find that at www.thegreatnessyou.com. www.thegreatnessyou.com. It's free. And this will allow you to start seeing how, my goodness, every time I feel sick, this emotion is being triggered. And that I need to find the root of that, and I need to do the healing work around it. And it's going to show you how to start identifying that. Now, if you want to do the healing work, the rest of my classes walk you through that full process. The last suggestion I'm going to make is critical. When you're choosing a doctor, or think about your doctor now, when they come in to see you, most doctors walk in with a prescription pad. It's 7 minutes long. What are your symptoms? Yep, okay, take this. I would fire that doctor immediately. And I'd be looking for a doctor who, the second I walk in, says, how are you feeling? What's going on in your life? Any divorce, any stress, any stuff at work? What's going on with the kids? In other words, if they're not investigating your emotional life, they're not treating you. They are not helping you heal whatever illness it is you're struggling with. So if it were me, I would start interviewing new doctors. And the first question I would ask them is, do you believe there's any correlation between emotions and illness? Are you familiar with the Adverse Childhood Experience study? Are you familiar with Candace Pert, Gabor Mate, Dr. Bruce Lipton? If they aren't familiar with any of that, if they don't see any correlation between emotions and illness and disease, then I would keep searching. It's critical that we start shifting this dynamic in the medical industry and they start dealing with truth, that they need to start looking at our emotional well-being. I don't personally call it mental health because that makes it sound like it's a thinking problem. It's also very detached, very clinical. What we really need to be calling it is emotional health, because that's the driver of our mental. Because I've talked about this before. Modern neuroscience shows we feel before we ever have a thought. The single greatest skill set we need to navigate any life situation, no matter what it is emotional mastery. Emotions drive all of our behavior, all of our illness, all of our disease, everything. Without emotional mastery, without emotional health, you cannot have mental health. It is the single greatest key we need to pursue. So, again, if you're looking for proof, the Adverse Childhood Experience study, Bruce Lipton's The Biology of Belief, Candace Pert's The Molecules of Emotion, Dr. Gabor Mate, When the Body Says No, and then my book, Your Journey to Success. All of these will create a vast improvement on your health conditions. It will require work. And that's the thing about pills. It's easy. Just rely on the pill, pop it, and wait and see if it makes it better. But it won't ultimately heal you. We have to do the emotional work. So sign up for my free Emotional Mastery, Your Journey to Emotional Mastery Masterclass. It's free at thegreatnessyou.com. So there you go. There are your solutions to better health. Enjoy the journey.